Good evening and welcome to News Channel 8. I'm Jerome Aegean, and these are some of the stories we have for you tonight. Domestic violence is on the rise once again, and at least 2 suspects are police officers. A marijuana bust on St. Croix, and the Philadelphia police need your help. These stories and more are coming up next on News Channel 8. In our top story tonight, domestic violence continues to escalate in our territory. Ironically, just as our Channel 8 news crew were on their way to do a story on domestic violence with the Women's Coalition, we had to proceed to the Carib Villa Apartments on St. Croix for a breaking story on, you guessed it, domestic violence. Here's News Channel 8's Wes Small with this exclusive report.
We're inside of Carib Villas, and as you can see here, ambulance, I believe, just getting ready to pull out. We have police on the scene. That's the apartment that we were looking at just now as we received a tip. There was a destruction of property here. We also understand that this is a case of domestic violence. Once again, we believe that we at least do have one female who is injured in this domestic violence attack. This just happened. News Channel 8 is first on the scene, and as you can see here, another vehicle pulling out. I saw one woman inside the back of one police car. I saw one woman holding a towel or something to her head, like she took an injury to her head. That's all that I know. We cannot show domestic violence victims on the air, as well as the EMTs that come to pick them up. So that's the file footage that you're watching now, is the ambulance and some of the emergency apparatus here on the scene. Ironically enough, we were on our way down to the Women's Coalition this morning to talk to Clemma Lewis about the 2 latest cases of domestic violence involving the VIPD's own. So we'll have more on that story, but this is the late-breaking story again on domestic violence. Yes, domestic violence is on the rise, and we'll be getting into that later on as well. So far, that's all we know. At least one woman has been injured in this early morning domestic violence story, destruction of property case right here in Carib Villas. If we have any more information by the end of the day, we'll get that to you. On the scene with this exclusive report at Carib Villas, I'm Wes Small for News Channel 8.
And 2 police officers are now being investigated for domestic violence as well. News Channel 8's Wes Small files this report.
One of the co-directors, along with Mary Mingus, is Miss Clemma Lewis. We've been here a lot. Clemma, what is going on not only with domestic violence in our community, with police officers who are supposed to protect us? And look what's going on. We have one police officer accused of abusing his daughter violently, and the next one abusing his wife.
Okay, I think what most people fail to understand, that police are just like human. They have the same domestic violence issues as everyone else. But what's critical here is, because they've been sworn to protect us, they do need to be dealt with a little different than you would the normal person. So my question would be, and it's definitely to the new acting commissioner, Francis, I hope that he has something in place for police officers that's perpetrators of domestic violence. He's supposed to have some kind of policies in place on how to deal with them. I hope he has something in place with police officers that's victims of domestic violence, and police officers that just need help in general. To my knowledge, I know that they don't have a psychiatrist that's assigned to the department. I know
for years.
I know they call people off filing and bring people in, and they need to have somebody, a psychologist or a psychiatrist, that work for Virgin Islands Police Department. And as I said earlier, they need to have groups. They need to have groups for police officers who are batterers. They need anger management. They need to have those kind of groups, and they need to have support groups for police officers that's victims, because again, just like us, they need help like everybody else, and they need to go through the system and they need to be dealt with just like anybody else that commit a crime, because crime starts at the top. The other thing I want to add, Wes, is that I don't know what's going on. I'm thinking that maybe it's the economics, the climate, what's going on globally. But I can say this is the first time in all my years of working with this agency that we can't even breathe in this office. We're here at 8 o'clock at night trying to shelter people, help victims of domestic violence, and some of them are law enforcement victims. Some of them are not, and not just police. There's other officers out there that's committing to other law enforcement as well, that's committing acts of domestic violence. If you need help, you a victim, you need to come to the Women's Coalition, call 773-9272. I do think some of the high incidence of reporting has to do with the last domestic violence homicide we have. Usually after a woman has been killed in domestic violence, it kind of put a scare in other women. They realize that they've been living in fear and they can be next. So I am getting some family members and victims calling saying, I don't want this to happen to me. I'm really afraid I could be killed. What can you do to help us or save us? So we know that that might be one of the causes why there's a rise in domestic violence.
The first things that the neighbors told me when we got down to Carib Villas a few minutes ago was, uh-oh, not those two again. And that means that this has happened again and again, and it can escalate into something bad like it did today.
Statistics show, Wes, on the average, victims go back and forth 7 times before they get out. So when you hear, uh-oh, it's them again, they'll go back and forth, and it can happen up to 7 times until somebody gets seriously hurt, injured, or killed.
Powerful words from Ms. Clemma Lewis, and along with Ms. Mary Mingus, they are the co-directors of the Women's Coalition. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is no excuse for domestic violence. I'm Wes Small for News Channel 8.
And as a follow-up to that story, 2 police officers are now also being investigated for domestic violence. Here's Melody Raines, Virgin Islands police spokesperson.
The Virgin Islands Police Department Internal Affairs Bureau is presently investigating 2 separate and unrelated investigations involving police officers in the St. Croix district, St. Croix Deputy Chief Chris Howell announced Wednesday, June 24th. The first is a domestic violence case between a police officer and his minor daughter, and the second case is a domestic dispute between a police officer and his wife. Both cases are being investigated to determine the merits of the charges. The Attorney General's office has been advised and will offer a prosecutorial opinion, Deputy Chief Howell said. The officers have been placed on administrative leave with pay pending the results of the investigation.